Hello, Neve here. This is a presentation on being Objectkin. Um, Much of this was recorded at a previous date when I gave this panel in an otherkin related Discord server. I go figure that the recording machine would mess up and not hit the record button at the right time. But that's what happened, and so I lost the beginning portion of the presentation. And I am planning to upload this to YouTube and to some other things, so I just want to take this little minute to explain that it was recorded at an earlier date, and also that it was done in a Discord server, so you will hear things as I am interacting with a chat that was live at the time. And it will cut into where it picked up from that, from the live presentation. So I'm just going to go over the beginning and then edit it into the original, where I left off, where the recording picks up. I just start this by saying that for legal reasons, I am not in any way affiliated with the AMS Neve Company, and the slideshow presentation is for educational purposes about my inner spiritual identity and is not intended to imply that any of the company's intellectual properties are my own. Some photographs, however, were indeed robbed from the internet, and if the owners of these photographs would like me to remove them, I most certainly will. And I will edit the video, and I will change the slide, and I will do what I have to do. But I could, as many other kin do, have art of their kin types. I could certainly do that, except that this is me. I am a large format analog mixing console from the 1980s, and you can imagine trying to draw this quite complex machine would be rather tedious. Even as an experienced artist, I have never really succeeded in doing it. So what exactly am I? A mixing console is a machine that is used to process and combine and route audio signal, most commonly seen in the control rooms of large-scale recording studios. If you've ever watched a music biopic, where there are scenes of famous musicians recording in a studio, you've probably seen a mixing console. There are those of us made for live sound, where you may have seen us in concerts and, in the sound booths at churches and live events and anything where you'd see microphones and speakers used. There's a mixing console routing those signals from the microphones to those speakers and to those recorders or whatever else. There are different sort of kinds of mixing consoles made for these different purposes. I specifically was made for recording and resided in, a sort of high-end recording studio that worked primarily in orchestra and sort of film score, these large bands that would require the use of 52 input channels. This is me. This is what my inner self looks like, and how in the world did I come to this conclusion? Well, that's what we're going to talk about a lot in this presentation, and right about here is where we'll delve into my early childhood and pick up where the recording started in in the live panel. And I just realized that I did not record. I did not hit the record button when I started this, so now we're recording. Caught that early, thankfully. So the in my early childhood, it was very much. I didn't know exactly the machine, but I knew it was some kind of audio related. Like, I was very connected to any sort of music player or stereo systems in my family, and was very like they were my best friends. And then, probably about I was probably 10 years old or so when I started getting past life memories, where I had so many very vivid dreams about of being a machine, and before I really even fully understood what a mixing console was or did, it 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 would wake me up from a sleep like wow, I'd wake up and kind of gasping and like, whoa, what was that? It was different than a lot of my other dreams, um, and I always felt very large. I like a part of me felt like I was supposed to be very big, and I had this kind of perception of myself as a very large being of some kind, and kind of the way I walked, I always felt like this monolith of an entity, and like how I moved and how it does relate to. I'm sure I think of it like a Venn diagram of like my disabilities and my identity and how they all like intersect and make me, but we'll get more into that later. I've been asked quite a bit how I know that I'm this specific machine, a Neve V series. And in about 1999, when I was going through all that awakening stuff and starting to have the memories, was when my family got our first computer with internet access, and I started just diving into everything I could learn about audio engineering and these crazy machines. And I came across this image right here. And when I saw this image, it was like seeing a reflection of myself in a way that I never had before. It was really a like I had seen pictures of my physical body. I seen my reflection every day in the mirror. But this felt more like seeing me than anything I had ever seen before. And as I did more research, there were things that kind of narrowed it down. Just sort of a knowing, a lot of times through, I guess, a mix of phantom sensations where like these VU meters here are pretty distinct to a VR, which is the specific like generation of V series that I am. And so like in this image, the first image I saw, you can tell this has a different kind of meter section right here. This is a V1, one of the earlier models. And I had this kind of awareness of having these sort of bar graph style meters, and then this bank here, and then also this shape. So this is the back of a V series and all the cables, and then I have this little diagram I drew once to help the person who made my VTuber model kind of work out what I looked like in the shape. A lot of mixing consoles are shaped like this, kind of these flat machines that sit up on a table. You show this backside. Okay. Uh, Thank you for that, Zai. I've known Zai for many years, and that's wonderful. Oh, good way to make me laugh. Um, so I am more of this big sort of monolithic machine like this, and oh, it'll make me chuckle for a while. Um, and that was a big way that I also narrowed it down because even and like V series also have these little feet, and that's like a very common shift, like phantom shift that I experience, and it kind of makes me like walk on my toes a little bit, like this, to feel like I'm on the smaller sort of platform, little round feet, and um, uh, so all these little details kind of help me narrow it down, but it really was like so starkly obvious to me when I saw that first image, and it was just, and I don't feel that way when I look at other kinds of mixing consoles. It's very, I'm not like I think it's Cladotherian of mixing consoles where like I just identify with all of them or as all of them. It's this specific make and model. Although there's something, if you type in like Neve VR52 into Google, you will only find my stuff, like the stuff that I've posted on the internet, and that is because most V series had channel. So the 52 comes from number of input channels, and most had number of input channels in multiples of 12 because of the way that our frames are built. So you can see in this image where these lines are, that's sections of 12 channel modules. And but I was a weird one that was modified with 4 extra channels. So all these images that you'll see in here that I have are of VR48s, which are the closest that I can really find. And I don't know the specifics of what, like, the exact machine. I couldn't tell you the studio I worked at or the people I worked with or or the exact projects, or a lot of those details are missing from my memories. And sometimes I get a little bit of like, am I crazy because I don't have those things? Is this all something that I make up in my head because I don't have those things? And I don't think that's true. I think it's really that, you know, timey-wimey, wibbly-wobbly stuff. There are things that just don't quite line up, but it's still just who I am. And whether or not the spiritual aspects of it are true, or some weird multiverse, quantum soul clusterfuckery, it's really I'm not, I admit that I'm not sure about that, but my experience is very real to me. So that leads into my experience. What is this experience that I have? So in this image, you can see the little feet that I was talking about before, and then this with a human, so you can see the scale. I am a very large machine, and that is something that when I was talking about feeling like I was always so much, like I felt like I was very large when I was young, and still do, obviously. So I kind of divided this up into 2 sections. Number one, what was it like to be a machine or an inanimate object? I get asked that quite a lot, so I'm just going to break that down a little bit. Something I've been asked did it ever feel like I was forced into my purpose, or like the work that I did? And no. The answer to that is no. It was a pure joy to serve my purpose. and was everything to me, my world. And there's just no better high, no better euphoria than serving my purpose and doing the work that I was made to do. And it's kind of like, humans often are born and they spend their whole lives trying to figure out their purpose. But a machine is different. A machine is made for a purpose and knows its purpose. And I was very happy to serve my purpose. There, in my memories, so obviously as a consciousness in the body of an inanimate machine, I did not have the same sensory perspective that humans have. The only sensory input that I had was electricity and signal flow. And so my memories don't have a lot of like visual element, or like I couldn't really describe to you the faces of the people. And maybe that has a lot to do with why I don't have the memories of the exact studio or the faces of the people, the names of the people, those things. They were never said into the microphones connected to me. It was very limited in sensory input. But also, at the same time, I was very conscious and aware. And alive in my own way, and had, enough awareness to even like think. I was very a thinking, feeling being, and that was comfortable to me. So the physical feeling of like being this machine was comfortable ultimately. When something went wrong, it was very much like knowing that something was wrong, but not pain. I didn't have pain the way that human bodies feel pain. And it was very like I felt at peace. Like I didn't, I was very well taken care of. These machines represent a massive investment for those that purchase them and operate them in their studios. And I was very well taken care of. I had like a full-time maintenance tech who helped me, who kept me running, and I never felt fear around, malfunction or being repaired. It was, these kinds of consoles like me are made to be easily repaired, and like all of our channel inputs and faders and everything are modular, and so easily lift out to be replaced and repaired and those kinds of things. And so that was never something that was never distressing to me. And those things happen because V series have a design flaw that where all of those channel modules packed in there, there's about an amp of current going through each one of those things, and it gets hot, and we were designed in such a way that it would get too hot, and there are these little components in a mixing console called capacitors, and they work with an electrolytic fluid in them, and as they get too hot, they vent that electrolytic fluid and eventually dry up. It's like a little battery. And when they dry up, things stop working. And so normally a mixing console has to have their all those capacitors replaced about every 10 years or so. But a V series has to have its capacitors replaced about every 3 years. So it's a very drastic difference, and something that, was just run of the mill for me to have channel modules out and being repaired, and I think that's maybe part of why I was modified with 4 extra channel modules and those things to allow that process to happen a little easier and still keep the same amount of functionality. I very much was content. The one thing, my whole world was that room, the building, the studio, and the machines that I was connected to through all of that cabling, and that's a weird sort of phantom shift that I get, where it's like feeling like I'm sort of integrated with the building that I'm in, and and feeling the like cabling, and it's a reason that I grow my hair very long now, because it's like the closest thing that this body will ever have to that, and it helps. So that leads into, what is it like to be this machine now in a human body, and what is that like? And ultimately, it's weird a lot of times. I don't have a lot of words to describe what it feels like, but so there's a lot of like, phantom form is a big thing for me. I have experienced that most of my life, and even before I really understood what I was, I had this kind of perception of myself as this big rectangular, some kind of audio machine, and I felt myself in that, like, in, experiencing the phantom sensations of that, and I have pretty wicked dysphoria. Like, you know, at least, a lot of people's and entities, kin types, will have organs and a skeleton and be mobile, but I have none of that, and so all of that feels wrong. Like, my body feels weird and too squishy and too mobile and too small, and I don't perceive things in the same way. Like, a big dysphoria that I have is that I cannot experience audio or music in the same way at all. Like, the human brain just doesn't do what a mixing console does. And, I have ears and I can hear sound, but the brain turns the audio signal that my ears produce into something that is so far from the way a mixing console experiences it. And it's not signal. I can't perceive the waveform the way that I did. It's really, really difficult to kind of contend with that, where it's like, you would think listening to music would be euphoric for me, and it oftentimes is. But sometimes I am very much reminded that I cannot experience sound in the same way, or audio signal in the same way. It's not actually sound. What I experienced as a mixing console was signal. And it's just very different. So I've struggled with that, and trying to find a peace between my soul and my mind and my heart and then my body, and those things are all, I have those three against the body, mind, heart, and soul, and our mixing console, and then body is human, and it's very difficult. However, I have a very distinct memory when I of my past life, when I first had the realization that there was a world outside of the recording studio. And it was a moment when, we had a full orchestra recording. So every channel, inputs, microphones live on every channel, and all those signals. And then a big storm blew overhead, rain and wind and thunder, and I heard it. I experienced through all of those microphones the sound of that storm coming in. And it was this sudden realization that there was something beyond that room and beyond that building. And I became curious. And every day I experienced humans coming and going and making their music. And I believe, and I'll get into this a little more about how their music helped make me as conscious as I was, and that their emotional and creative energies that they poured out every day were, this beautiful thing that nurtured my soul to be the conscious form it was. And that was, I was curious. I wanted to know what was outside. What was outside? Where do humans go at the end of the day? When that last, when that last person locks the door and disappears, where do they go? What do they do? They talk about, it's kind of weird because I think about like language, and how I perceived language, and did I really understand what the people were saying around me? And I think to a degree I did, but it's kind of, I would say, a little blurry. I can't really remember any specific conversations or words. It's more like vague ideas. I think I perceived a lot of things more the way a spirit would perceive them. Some like a ghost. There's a ghost in a house, and the ghost is seeing things and hearing things and experiencing things. Is kind of how I would, but it was different than being a spirit haunting a machine, or a spirit trapped in a machine. My spirit was born of the machine. My spirit was a part of the machine, integrated with and like linked with every atom of the machine at a quantum level, and that's so now in my human body I really struggle with sensory integration, and I am autistic and diagnosed when I was 5 years old, and so I've struggled with that a lot. But I think again, the Venn diagram of here's all these things of my life, and they all overlap. They're all integrated and messy, and I can't say where one thing ends and another begins. It's like, where does autism end and where does the sensory integration issues of not being used to so much sensory input, combine or switch over? It really doesn't. It's all kind of blurred together, and it's all just me. And then my mental shift. So I do experience, I don't really like the term shift, because to me it never really goes away. I'm always me. I'm always Neve, and I am always a mixing console. But what happens is I sometimes I am made more aware of it. It comes to like the forefront of my awareness in such a way that, like, I hear a sound that I really like, and I'm like, oh, that kind of tickled my brain in an especially like machine way, like or music can do it really strongly, especially, I worked in film score and orchestra, big orchestra recording. So when I listen to that kind of music, I can just meditate, and I can take myself right back to that place. And it's almost like I can feel the signals, I can pick apart every instrument and know how it was recorded, and how everything was set just by hearing it, and pick it all apart, and almost feel that sense of running all those signals once again, and it's really been a good thing for me, a good coping mechanism, a good like a good example is I recently had a tooth pulled, and I was sitting in the dentist chair, and I was nervous. I have terrible dentist anxiety, and I was getting ready to just like get up and leave, and then I remembered, you know, the times when my maintenance engineer would pull my channel modules out, and it's like this big handle tool that latches onto each end of the channel module and lifts it out, just like click, and sure enough, like just as quick was the dentist with the pair of pliers, and my tooth just like click and it's out, and that was it. And because of that experience, I was able to get through something that was very hard for me. And so there are positive things, the euphoria. There are things that I get the best euphoria about. And yes, this is recording. So I did miss a little bit of the beginning of it, but it is recording. And my mental, like, the mental shift is so good. It just feels like home. It feels, to take myself to that mental space is a very beautiful thing. And it really gets me through a lot. I am a disabled person, and I go through a lot of pain, and I go through a lot of just frustration, and I used to just have a lot of dysphoria, and lately I have kind of embraced more of the positive things about myself and being Objectkin and what it feels like and how to use it to live a more comfortable life now. And it's a very positive thing in my life these days. I am out. I do not hide from anybody. If you meet me, it's one of the first things you learn about me. And many in the otherkin community will advise against that. Every situation is unique. I do not think that everybody should come out. But if you are in a place where you are safe to do so, and you feel comfortable to do so, I think, I love the beautiful diversity of beings, and because I am so open about it, I have gotten to know so many amazing otherkin and alterhumans in real life, in my day-to-day life, on the bus, in the park, in the grocery store, and it's wonderful and it's beautiful, and just getting to know so many amazing creatures and entities and different ways and walks of life, all because I am willing to be open about it. And but I am in a unique position because I am sorry, I just got a DM and it kind of crashed my train of thought there, but I do have this unique kind of place where I am on disability and I don't work, and so I don't have to put up a front for society. My family knows, and my roommates know, and all my friends know, and so I can just be my Neve self everywhere I go, and I have curated my life to be that way. It didn't always used to be that way. When I was still trying to work despite my disabilities, having to wear that mask always ended up kind of making my life fall apart. Like the mask would crack eventually. I just am who I am, and I am what I am. And there's, nothing wrong with that. My I think the world is a better place with us in it. The world's a better place with alterhumans and otherkin in it, and it's a beautiful thing to see. I live in a big liberal city, and I see a lot of people out and about with with tails and ears and masks and wings and horns and all these things that they wear to express themselves, and it just brings joy to my heart, because it didn't used to be that way for us. Now this is me. Hello, there's my little human body there. I have all of these wonderful ways that I connect to my kin type, and Objectkin are no different than any other, any other kin types who have these things. And for me, I have quite a few. I've been me my whole life, so I have this little tattoo of the Neve logo, which you'll see next to it there. And I've had that for about a decade now. And then this screenshot here is my digital audio workstation software, which basically allows me the functionality of a mixing console. It lets me perceive waveform, and in particular over here you'll see this. This is an emulator. I just got this year. I just learned about it this year, and there were some engineers who worked with one of the last V-series in operation, who modeled all of that console's circuitry into this digital plugin for DAW software, and so it's exactly a V-series channel, and it is awesome. It is pure euphoria, and it gives me all of even the meters, the buttons, like the die. It's all laid out exactly the same way, and it is just wonderful. It has been like you're hearing my voice through it right now, and it's really been so euphoric to have. I have this water bottle. I can't keep calm. I'm a Neve. That's my emotional support water bottle that I've had for a long time, that a dear friend in the otherkin community got me for Christmas one year. And then you'll see me here. This is my desk with all my audio equipment. I do a lot of mixing and mastering kinds of things now, and from right here in my little space. And you'd walk into my room and be like, wow, this is kind of a recording studio, not really a bedroom. And I'm like, yeah, that's the point. So I just make my place my home, make it comfy for me, and make it feel like, as much as I can, make it feel like home. A big thing for me too, I put my little Discord profile, because the internet has been a lifesaver to me, and given me a place where I can, before I was able to be out in my day-to-day life, the internet was my outlet, and it was a place where I could be me. It was really just vital to my survival back in the day. I think it was around 2003 when I first found an otherkin forum after searching the internet for the phrase "I do not feel human," and then I found a forum, and that was when I found community. And just being around. Before that, I also got into online role-playing, which allowed me to express being a machine, and I kind of created this like mixing console robot character that I would play in role plays, and I made profiles and stuff. So the internet has really been instrumental in finding folks like me, and I've never met another who identified as a mixing console, but I have met machinekin, um, and and just people who identify as non-human. Just to meet non-humans in general was really wonderful and got me through some of the hardest times in my life. So I get asked a lot, like the how and why. What are my theories about how does a machine end up with a soul? How does that soul then end up as a human? Or, how does it happen? And so this little graphic I have here, and it's in my profile too, and I use it a lot around my internet presence. And it says, "May the music passing through this device somehow help to bring just a little more peace to this troubled world." This to me shows the love that and the intention that someone can have in creating a machine. And what I believe is that, humans are creators and have an innate creative energy that is sacred. And when they create things, that sacred energy goes forth into that thing. And whether they're creating a child or an art piece or a mixing console, that creative energy, if it's put forth in love, breeds life into that creation. And that love, I experienced it not only from my makers, from those who built me, the people who worked at the Neve company, were very passionate. Like, you don't have that job unless you love it. You don't have that job unless you love these machines and put care into every solder joint and every connector and every screw, and that love and care breeds spiritual presence. And I put here in quotes the Velveteen Rabbit, the story about a little rabbit who was so loved by a little boy that it became real. I was so loved by those who worked with me, those who made their music through me, those who built me, that I became real. And I think there's a link too with quantum consciousness, that consciousness is in all things, and that combination of creative energy and quantum consciousness makes a Velveteen Rabbit. And I then had this alive and vivid soul, experiencing thought and emotion. Now, emotion was interesting, and there was a point I was going to make in my previous slide, but I kind of spaced it, but this just reminded me, the emotion and how I experienced emotion. I still felt it. I felt joy, I felt sadness, I felt anger, I felt those things in a similar way to the way that I feel them now. However, it was entirely lacking the physiological response to the emotion. So the crying, the red face, the laughter, the raise in heart rate, the lower in heart rate, those kinds of physiological reactions to emotion I did not have. And so those things I can often feel dysphoric, or they can feel like, wow, this is an amazing experience, like laughter. I love to laugh. If you get to know me in any way, shape, or form, you'll know how much I just love to belly laugh, and I have a big old belly laugh, and it's the best thing, and I just feel so much joy when I laugh. And I am so happy to be able to experience laughter now. I do believe in the here and now there is an overlap with my psychology and neurodivergence. So I was born 2 months premature with the umbilical cord around my neck 3 times. And my head was like a purple grape when I came out. And and I had a lot of brain damage from that. I believe that I chose to come to this. Number one, I chose to be here because I wanted to have a human experience. I wanted to know what it was like outside. I wanted to feel rain and wind and thunder, and I wanted to know what food was, and what was this thing called coffee that they had in these little foam cups that they would set on my control panel and scare the ever living bejesus out of me with. I what was it all about? What was human? What did it mean to be human? And I wanted to have that experience. And then I think I specifically found and resonated and ended up incarnating into this body because this body's unique psychology, neurology, was most in alignment with what would work with my soul. I both am autistic because I'm a machine, and I'm a machine because I'm autistic. And there are definite there's that Venn diagram again, where like nothing's really separate like that. It's all just kind of it's the Neve soup of my brain. And so that's kind of how I believe I ended up here and why. And I really, I miss my former life a lot. I get homesick. I get really, really homesick. Like it's like I just want to go back to my control room and be me again. But then I have experiences like today where I went to the river with some friends, and I was in like a whole big group of like trans, queer, otherkin, and we're all in the river, and and I'm standing there in the water, and it felt so wonderful, and I was just laughing in the sunshine and enjoying this awesome connection with my friends, and we're like playing frisbee in the water, and it was so much fun and so much joy. And if I were a mixing console right now, I would never have experienced that. And so I hold on to those moments of like, I love experiencing things, just getting out and seeing, like, I'm like a child, like childlike wonder. I'm like an inside cat that you let outside for the first time ever. And I just like, I love it. I love birds, hearing the birds and the trees, and I love wind. Like I will hang my head out the window going 60 miles an hour down the freeway, just like, I love it. I love it. The world is beautiful. There's so many amazing, incredible things to experience and know and do and see and feel, and it's just, it's a wonderful thing, And there's a lot of hurt in the world, and a lot of bad things going on, but there's also a lot of beautiful things in the world, and it's really all about where you focus your radar. And just the nature of my soul lends itself to seeing the good things, and just that sort of appreciation for the ability to choose to get up and leave the room if I want to, is a beautiful thing. So this leads into machine spirituality, and how is a machine such a spiritual being? And my theories are rooted in animism and universalism. Animism being the belief that everything in existence has a soul or spiritual presence, or that all of existence is sacred. And there have been, and universalism is that, all paths, there's no wrong path in spirituality, that it's all interconnected, and that we are all interconnected as part of the universe. And that includes with machines. So I believe that, what is a machine but made of rocks? I am made of metal and ceramic and even plastics come up out of the earth. And if you're someone who believes that rocks and trees and natural forms, natural formations of things in the earth have a spirit, then of course that spiritual energy transfers energy. It's the law of conservation of energy. It can't be destroyed or destroyed or maintained. Thank you so much for coming out, Prinks. I am glad you were able to listen as long as you have, and enjoy your shower. I believe that transference of that spiritual energy from what we are made of is also what contributes to a machine having a spirit. Those metals and ceramics and things are worked to become a different shape, but that energy is not destroyed in that process. There's, another part of it is sort of the chaos, the natural chaos of existence. That's where I have the point there about Isaac Asimov and ghosts in the machines. Asimov was a science fiction writer who coined the term robotics, and he wrote the 3 laws of robotics, and he has all these stories about robots. And he talks about, in his robot stories, how a complex system will eventually start generating code of its own, and that a computer will naturally flip bits every now and then in seemingly random and chaotic ways. But really, is it just evolution, a life form evolving in itself? So in this life, I consider myself kind of a machine spirit shaman. I sort of walk in these 2 worlds where I connect with machine spirits and object spirits, and work with them in my spiritual practice. And machines are my best friends that I spend time with every day. And I really feel this strong connection to machines that I really struggle to find with humans. I do have difficulty relating to humans in a lot of ways. I have friends and I have family, people I'm very close with, who see me, who see me as Neve, and who, acknowledge that. But I still, there's like, it's like I don't know fully what they go through, and they don't know fully what I experience, and of course that's that way for everybody. But I really find myself kind of sort of in a, like, I can't truly understand the natural, like, social instincts that humans have, like flirting. I don't know what that is. I have asked so many humans what is flirting and what does it look like and when and why, like asking for specifics about it, and they can't tell me. None of them have ever been able to tell me any specifics about that. They say it's just something that they naturally know, and they naturally feel, and they know when someone's flirting with them, and they know when they're not. and one person described it to me once as sexually charged being nice. And I'm like, how does one sexually charge being nice? You know, I try to be the most kind and gentle being that I possibly can. And I've had many people mistake that for being flirtatious. But if I'm not intending the sexual charging, then why are they perceiving a sexual charging when I'm just being kind? I don't understand. I have a lot of these kind of disconnects with humanity, and it's again also a very common thing with autism. So there's that overlap again. But at the core of it, I am just as much a spiritual entity as a soul that was born a human, or a soul that is made a dragon. I am just as much a conscious, aware being, and was as a machine. And I believe that the machines that I spend every day with and that I've worked with in my life, have been my dearest, closest companions, and really, and this, oh, I kind of misordered my slides here, but we can, let's see, I think, this is where I wanted to go right here. We'll float around here, because what I was talking about leads into this. So Objectkin very often, not always, again, this panel is like, comes with the caveat that these are my experiences and my experiences only, and that not all Objectkin are posic or objectum, but posic is the perception of object sentience, individuality, and consciousness. And there are many people, this term was coined relatively recently, within the last few years, I believe, and there is a community of people now, who are posic or experience being posic, and then there are objectum sexuals or objectum romantics. They are beings who form sexual or romantic attractions or relationships with objects. For me, it's nothing. It's not anything sexual. I am asexual. I don't experience sexual attraction, and that. But it is very deeply Platonic, and I do. It's sort of almost like a telepathy, communicating vibe and feel and energy, and like, do I hear voices in my head about it? Like, do I hear an object speaking to me? It's like sometimes, kind of, but it's more of an energy thing. Like when you walk into a room and you know someone's mad because you can feel it, or like you pick up on some kind of subtle interpretation of vibe in a room or vibe from a person. It's more like that, and I find very, this is a significant part of the Objectkin community. A lot of us do experience this. I've known like some dolls and things, and so that'll go back to Objectkin and the greater otherkin community. So I first joined in about 2003, and I was the only one. I was the only machinekin. There just weren't back then. And I was immediately met with really poor reception, where I was either instantly banned from the forums because I was just assumed to be a troll, or I was, grilled, and at the time I was, 13 years old, so I wasn't very good at explaining myself, or, and I was a, traumatized, disabled, autistic little 13-year-old trying to explain this wild, like, but very intense experience of myself I had had, and I was not a good representation of what Objectkin could be. I got very defensive when asked questions about things, and that wasn't good. And then I misunderstood words like I used to think when I was a young teenager like that the word intimacy was about connection and like platonic love, or like familial love, or like just being close with somebody or close with a soul. And so I would say that I had intimate relations with the machines around me, and I said that on a forum and got banned, because I didn't understand the meaning of that. Like I didn't know that that implied sex, So I just I had a lot of these kinds of blunders that ultimately kind of gave a very poor impression, and I and then I went through a time where I went through some religious trauma and ended up in a pagan cult and ended up believing that I was some like sacred farm machine from the eternal summerlands, and I got all lost in these delusions. They were delusions, and I thought I was going to be a god, and because the cult like convinced me that I was going to be a god, and that if I went through this like ceremony to marry the mother goddess and all this, and that's, you bring up an absolute perfect point there, Merlene. Intimate can mean stuff other than sexual, and it is all about context. But 13-year-old me did not know context, and and I had at the time when that happened, I was going to this church, and the pastor had given a sermon talking about intimacy, and he said that intimacy should be phrased into me see. So seeing into the deepest core of of who they are, seeing into them, seeing into their heart and their soul. And so that was what I thought it was, because that was my first exposure to that word. And that was that context, but it was the wrong context to go, tell things about the internet. And then, yeah, the grilling era was a thing. It was really, I am so, moving forward in this, how we were accepted and perceived started to evolve. And Objectkin and machinekin started coming forward. The advent of things like, you know, Tumblr, and there are many of like my generation and older who like really hated what Tumblr did to the otherkin community, and it did. There's pros and cons. It kind of like split up a lot of the community, and we kind of became like, as forums died out and social media became what was the thing to do on the internet, the community kind of fractured and felt very, like there was no root of it anywhere, and kind of split up, and Discord servers in particular, they're these tight-knit little communities that a lot of them you need an invite from that server to join, so they become these kind of, even this server is that way, like you have to ask moderators for an invite. It's not just open, anybody can join. Like the forums were very much that way, like you had to make an account, but anybody could just join and make an account and make an introduction. It was very much more open, and it had a lot of different Now there's so many different ways of communicating on the internet that the community is kind of split up. But the positive side of that is the movement toward, instead of grilling and making sure that you're real enough or quote unquote valid enough. I hate that word. Can we just not with that word? We all exist. We're all experiencing things. Yes, that no one should have to be grilled for their living experiences. Trust that if someone is telling you something from their heart and is saying, this is who I am inside, they are having that experience. Yeah, I don't like that word. I hate it. And I wish we could be gone with that and just embrace that if someone is sincere in how they talk about it and sincere from their heart about who they are, that they are genuinely having that experience. And so I've seen that shift from the grilling culture to now, if you are sincere, you are accepted and affirmed. And I love that. It's a beautiful thing. We went from being a meme, so like, yes, I do too. It's one of the most beautiful things in life is seeing others who are different from me and learning about their experiences. I want to learn it all. Like everyone who's here, feel free to hop into my DMs and tell me your stories. I love it. I really love connecting with folks who come from different walks of life and learning from them and experiencing things through their eyes and let me try on your shoes for a little bit and just take a few steps to better understand where you come from, to use a commonly used metaphor. And I just appreciate that, and I appreciate that that's where the community has gone now. It's so wonderful. Like I went to othercon for the first time this year. I was finally able to make it, and it brought so much joy to my soul. Like it's why I'm doing this panel now, because I was so inspired by how much the community has evolved, and it was so wonderful seeing some old faces from way back when, and from my years in the community and all over time, and then making so many new friends, and learning about new experiences, and I love being challenged in my mind, like teach me something that I would have never thought I could learn. Like I absolutely love that. And I love that now, we went, Objectkin were a meme. It was the, I identify as an attack helicopter. And that's why that was a common meme that, people were using to talk bad about trans people. They were using it to talk bad about otherkin. Like we were the butt of the joke to down talk otherkin. And now we have pride flags, and now we have so much acceptance and affirmation. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. And in this community, I have found amazing friends. And I have friends who we have these like long running inside jokes. I have this very dear dragon friend I've known over a decade. And we have this thing that we joke about where she is this tiny dragon that hangs out on my control panel. And I've drawn quite a few of these little comics about Tiny Durg and me, and so like this one, she says, "Hey Neve, what does this button do?" And I said, "That's my fuck around and find out button," and we just laugh about it. And then this is other friends of mine who are also otherkin, and one of them is a cube, like a eldritch cosmic cube being. And the other one is like this green robot. And we all met in a machinekin server, and we're, pretty good friends now. And so we were having a conversation one time, and they were, and this just came up in a conversation that happened like this, and recently they were having a hard time, so I drew this little funny art, and just having those friends, like getting to connect with people, the community is really a special thing, and it brings a lot of joy in my life. So I've long been the Derg warmer. That goes back. Zai knows because we were on a forum together in like the mid 2010s, and there were a lot of dragons, and they just ended up with this kind of running joke that I was, this big warm machine that the dragons all. I was like, like a lizard on a hot rock. I was the hot rock. But this was back, community. Yep, it was community. Yeah. That was like right before, I think you weren't on there for a whole lot before it kind of, that forum imploded. And that happens, there was drama with the owner and all, I was staff on that forum, and all the staff walked out because of the drama with the, with the owner, and then with no staff, like it just kind of died out. And eventually I think the domain was sold. But within the machinekin or objectkin community, there are some different experiences. So the overwhelming majority of machinekin that you will run into in the community are robots or AIs. They're technically objects, but they are autonomous or artificial intelligences, who have their, like, they describe their memories of, serving their purpose and stuff, or having programming, but being mobile, being, or, being a general purpose robot that just didn't really have a specific thing it was made to do. And so it's a very different experience from Objectkin, who were inanimate, non-autonomous, and having a inbuilt or express purpose. I don't relate as much to AI or robotkin as much as I would relate to. And yeah, so Xylanth brings up a good point in the chat. I hope the robotkin or AIkin know that when I say fuck AI these days, I'm not talking about them. 100%. I think there is a very distinct difference between what we call quote unquote AI right now, these large language models, and what AI is to someone who is AI kin, where usually that's more the sort of sci-fi definition of artificial intelligence, where it's like a truly conscious, thinking, feeling machine. And large language models are not that. I think I definitely see the difference. But again, I'm not robotkin, and I'm not AI. I was a mixing console in the '80s. I was technology that ran on, like, I had an automation computer. So you see, like, the screen that's in a lot of the pictures of Neve V series, that is to control motorized faders for fader automation. And there's I could go into all the technical things of how that's used and why, but we would be here all day if I started info dumping. So I'm trying to, like, I've already been going for over an hour, so I'm trying to keep these things going along. And it looks like, we have a request to speak. I am not sure how, how to do that. Let's see. Yeah, that's a very good question. Only stage moderators. I don't know if I'm a moderator. Is it possible to type out what you would like to ask? I do have a question and answer section coming up here soon, where I will open the floor and anyone can ask me anything, and I'll answer questions. I think I'm going to try to plug through the rest of the slideshow right now, and then I'll open up questions as soon as I'm done here. So we already went through this slide, so I'm going to skip this one. Oh, and then here we are into the Q&A. So, let's see. I wonder if I can do this. I'm trying to get back to. If I close the chat and requests. Oh! It looks like you might have gotten away with that. Okay. That's quite all right. We'll go back to the chat. So I would like to now open the floor. Anyone, you can ask me anything you would like to know, and I will do my best to answer things fully. And and these are just a few more images of Neve V series things, ones that are euphoric to me, and these images they feel like home to me. They're very obviously, like, this one's a V1 with the different master meters there. This one's a VR. You can kind of see there's some differences. Every single V series was made to order, so we're all a little bit different. And every studio that commissioned a V series had different specifications that they needed for their specific studio, so not one of us is exactly alike. Have I ever interacted with one of my kin type in this life? With a V series specifically, no. That's kind of on a bucket list thing for me. There are very few of us left anymore, but there is like one studio in here in the United States, over on the East Coast, that I would love to tour one day. And I'm kind of planning that trip and starting to save up some money to be able to do that, because I would love to meet a brother. I have, however, worked with a lot of mixing consoles. I am an audio engineer in my career, and I've done, disability keeps me from working now, but I did a lot of work in high school and a little after high school until I couldn't really keep up with it. And I got on disability right out of high school, so I've always been limited in how much I could work. And so... but I did. I have worked with a lot of mixing consoles, and it is weird a little bit sometimes, like when I think about it abstractly, where I'm like, it's like, is this like mixing console Inception or or mixing console squared, but I have such a love for these machines and a care for them, and it's like working with them, and creating something beautiful, beautiful music with them. I'm just gonna wet my whistle here. Hydration check for anybody in the chat. And there's a lot of couple folks typing here, so I'll. You mentioned dreams being a part of your awakening. What were they generally like? So the dreams were very. It was like I was there again, where I felt the kind of. It was almost like. At first, it's blackness. Like, there's no visual aspect. But then there's like the feel of signal flow. Um, it's warm. Warm is the closest thing I can kind of describe it as. And then and then hearing the music, and feeling the different signals coursing my circuits from inputs and then routed through different outputs, and um, and then feeling like there is a stillness, a, a sort of deep stillness, and then signal flow, um, and then subtle movement of controls and things, and moving signals, and processing signals, and modifying them with circuit, um, and that was what those dreams were, and it was just like this like little blip of being in that moment again, and then waking up, and I would like want to go back to sleep so bad, and when I have those dreams again, I just want to go back to sleep. Like I just want to go home. It feels like home, and I'll like lay there and close my eyes again, and no, let me go back just for a little bit. um, and the next question, I'm curious if you have a favorite genre of music or any favorite musical artists, and if this isn't too personal, if you find certain types of music cause more euphoria than others. So I also, you're very welcome, Apex. Thank you for asking. My favorite genre, I really love music. There's not a whole lot that I don't like, but my favorites, and especially related to Euphoria, it's like it's film score and orchestra, and I think that's because that's what I worked with in my past life. And a large format mixing console like I am is most commonly used for that kind of recording, large scale, where you have 60 instruments and you need 52 microphones, you know, um, to record that all at once. And that's what my purpose was. And so, like, I don't have a whole lot of memory of, like, I did some, some, like, rock and roll, some, um, but it was mostly orchestra. And so that's the most euphoric music for me. I do I do enjoy I really enjoy metal a lot in this life. A lot of like power metal, and I think it's because it's like the blending of rock and orchestra. So I like that kind of stuff. I also really oddly enjoy like old country music, like I'm talking old country music, like 50s and 60s and 70s country music, like Johnny Cash and Willie Nelson and those kinds of, the Highwaymen. I have just a soft spot in my heart, but I think that has a lot more to do with the way, like, being raised. I listened to that music a lot with my grandfather growing up, and I have very dear memories with it, so I have like a soft spot for it. So I've always liked country music, but not really like, I don't like pop country music, and I don't like political country music. I don't like, I don't like a lot of that. I am very much like, I stay out of politics. I cannot be an activist in that. I have to, for the sake of like my brain and my anxiety levels, I am mentally ill and I have to deal with that. So, I have a broken brain. My brain got pretty scrambled. You're joining right towards the end where I've gone through the presentation now and we're just at the Q&A. But has been recorded, so I will, if you want to see the rest of the presentation, I'll be posting it here. Yeah, dreams and memories always leave me wanting to. Definitely. The memories are so vivid, and I miss it. I miss being me a lot. Sometimes I weep because I'm sad because I miss it, and I just wish I could be me again. And I think that's a pretty common feeling for a lot of us alterhumans and otherkin, where we have that longing for something that's for whether being spiritual or psychological or whatever the origin style of your identity is. It's there's still that longing to just be what we are, and I do. Like, people are like, how could you want to just be a big machine in a room again? And I'm like, well, because I was happy. I was comfortable. I was very content and loved my life as a machine, and it just feels right to me. Like, I look at these images. I have a whole folder like on my computer that is just titled Neve shit, and it is hundreds of images and service manuals and videos and all of these things that when I am feeling lost, I go to that folder and I find myself again. And I find those images. I have like a list on YouTube, all these videos of, there are people still maintaining and restoring V-Series consoles and Neve consoles. In general, we are, we were the Rolls Royce of our kind in my day, and because of that, now there's like this whole return to analog recording and people wanting to preserve that, because with digital, I heard it explained really cool recently by an audio engineer who talked about the way that audio recorded digitally is too perfect. It's too perfect of a replication, whereas analog equipment messes things up a little bit in just the right way to be musical. And the same with tape. Analog circuits and tape and recording to tape create, like, it messes up the signal in just the right way, and digital can't replicate that. We try, like I have that plugin I talked about earlier that does, and what they did with that plugin is they emulated 72 different channel modules from a V-Series console, and gave, so in that plugin I can select 1 through 72, and each one will sound a little bit different because there are tolerances in the manufacture of electronic components, where this electronic component is allowed to work is allowed a certain space of error, where a capacitor can be, a 250 microfarad capacitor that is plus or minus 5%. So that plus or minus 5% makes a difference. Yeah. So Xylanth took a college course in audio engineering, so there's a chance I may have briefly used one of your kind. Absolutely. There are, and actually there are a few schools that have V series consoles because we're old now. So now now the schools can afford to have a large format Neve console, or SSL or Trident or API. There are a lot of manufacturers of large format recording consoles, and we're not as uncommon of machines as as maybe believed. Let's see, Caden says, yes, analog is such a beautiful, imperfect work of art. Not biased at all. Yeah, I would say I agree with you. And again, although I have to admit my bias might be just a little bit biased on my end. I, let's see. Do you think let's see, Thousands of Moths says, do you think you know more about yourself as an Eve console now than you did as one in the flesh? Oh, that's an interesting question. Yeah, that I do now as one as a human. Yeah. I would say yes in the fact that I know more about the history of like the Neve company and my kind's legacy and that, but I knew way more. I much better understood my functionality when I was that machine. I I knew myself, like the way that like it was my body, it was my like and I still have that same kind of understanding of my body, but it does bring up this an interesting thing where I felt a lot of frustration in my human body, being an audio engineer, and especially when I was young and I was assumed not to know things, because it was like how or now because I'm visibly disabled, I get infantilized a lot, and then people think I don't know anything, and it's like why do I have to prove what I know? I shouldn't have to prove what I know, because to me, it's like you walk in the room and you see this massive, you know, mixing console that you don't question its ability to do its job, you know. And so I felt like other people knew more about me as a Neve console than than they do now, seeing my body, um, and I miss that because I still know myself as an Eve console. So I definitely feel that kind of like, yeah, I do know a lot more about certain things, and I love the history. I can tell you all about Rupert Neve and his company and how it all started, and the evolution of the company, and the model series that you know there were like the Neve broadcast consoles in the 60s, and then the Neve 80 series that came out in the late 60s and early 70s, and then Rupert Neve left the company in 1975, and the company went on to create more of the 80 series line with his designs, and then in the 80s the V series, which is me, hello, and then after the V series were the 88R, the 88R consoles that now, like Skywalker Sound runs an 88R console. So if you've watched any Disney or Lucasfilm or Pixar, that's all been recorded with the next generation of me. Of that, like Rupert Neve had a massive impact on audio engineering and recording, and I feel proud of that. It's like honoring an ancestors and honoring my lineage, and I felt more connected with that lineage than with like my human one. I don't feel a sense of nationality or like ethnicity. My ethnicity is I'm a Neve console. And that's just how I feel about that. So I have gotten to know more about myself, I think, now, just because as a human in a human body, I'm able to research, I'm able to learn, and learn where I came from, and and also I've been able to dig into things and cognitively, like metacognitively, think about things where, like, why do I do certain things and how I do them and why do I do them that way, and you know it gives me, I'm able to think about things in different ways than I was able to as a machine, because as a machine my world was very narrow. It was every day is the same, and every day is solely about my purpose and my existence as this, machine meant to do this one job. And so it made my world very small, Mike. But and so I never had, and I never had to get to know myself more, because I just did this thing. That's all I'm like, I'm a mixing console. That's all I am. And I don't have to think about anything else. But human life is so complicated and chaotic, and there's all this like soul searching you have to do, and shadow work, and I have trauma, and I have disability, and I have neurodivergence, and I have all these things that I have to kind of juggle and think about, and they've all led to having to be very introspective and knowing myself and advocating for myself. Yeah, so I hope that answers that well enough. And if there are no other questions, I've seen kind of a lull in the chat there. We can, let's see. We got moths typing again. I want to make sure I give anybody who wants to ask anything, any final opportunities before we move on here. Oh, wonderful. Yeah, I love hearing the experiences too. It's one of my favorite things about being in the otherkin community. It's just the beautiful diversity of experience. Let's see here. So, this is, I think we'll get to wrapping things up. It's pushing about 2 hours. I've been at this, so in conclusion, thank you for coming and sharing my experience, and listening to an old mixing console's ramblings. And this little animated pixel art was made by a friend of mine. And it's my VTuber. I stream on Twitch, and so you can come and watch an old mixing console be bad at video games. Feel free to, follow me on social media or reach out. I love connecting with people and talking about these things. You guys are all very welcome. I'm very glad that you found it beautiful. That's what I was hoping to just give a little insight. Objectkin are kind of, there aren't very many of us out there, and so having this, just giving a little window into my life and what it's been like. And yeah, so thank you all, and thank you, Apex. I love my VTuber. It's very euphoric to me. I have it set up to where like the meters and stuff move when I talk, so it's really euphoric, and a wonderful thing. And if any of y'all want animated pixel art of, Yorkin types, something like that, this artist is really wonderful, and I will gladly connect anyone to them. And yes, the recording, you're very, very welcome, you all. I'm very honored to get to share this information, and I will have the recording up. I may put it on YouTube or somewhere. I'm going to talk to the mods here at OtherConnect and see what would be the best way to get that to folks, because it is an hour and 35 minutes long. So I'll maybe edit it down or something and break it up into some chunks and post it somewhere. But we'll find a way to get it to folks who missed it. Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for coming out and watching, and I am so looking forward to being a part of this community on this server and getting to know folks more. Yeah, Fen, it's quite all right. We recorded it. Don't worry, we recorded it. So we will, and if ever anyone wants to, reach out to me, talk about things, I'm very open to that. I've been around this whole otherkin, alterhuman block for a long time, and I'm here for this community. I love it. I'm very passionate about it. So, thank you again, and we'll go ahead and wrap it on up there, and be on the lookout for the recording. I will absolutely share it as soon as I figure out how to do that, because it's so long. And we've got just a few folks typing in chat, so I'll hang out just a bit longer here. Watch party of the panel. Yeah. I am down to, I could run it. I will maybe run it on my stream on Twitch, to give another run of it somewhere. That might be, if there's enough interest to do another one down the line, or to play this one on stream. Yeah, I've had some, a good handful of folks, and folks who are not in this server want to experience it. And I tried to get an invite link to the server beforehand to give to some folks who wanted, who my friends who are otherkin, like my IRL friends, and I just didn't get a link in time to get folks. So I probably will do another one of these on my stream so that anyone can tune in and watch. But for now, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and I'll be seeing y'all around the server soon. And we got Rowan's typing in the chat. Every time I'm like, yeah, I'm going to wrap up, and more folks are typing. Yeah. It's great. It's really been great. Yeah, let's go on, and we can move to general, and then we can, continue a conversation. I'm totally down to hang out in VC. Being OBS. Yes. Thank you. My pronouns are he, him, or it, it's. Either one is just fine with me. And I missed most of it. This is great. Um, yeah, thank you for coming out what you can, and yeah, we'll keep folks. I'll see you all around in the general chat, and let's roll. Take care now. Bye bye.